So, this project is phase 2 of our tank project. I think 2 or 3 years ago, we approved phase 1. This is just an addition to that project. We currently have a 4.3 million gallon tank that's filling. We found a bunch of voids underneath the tank. Sorry, I'm kind of out of breath. I ran up the stairs to get here on time. So it's also at the end of its design life. So it's time to replace that tank. And also with the increase in population, we're looking to increase the capacity from 4.3 to 5 million gallons. Pretty straightforward design. It's essentially a copy and paste of phase 1. Nothing too major with this one. We're still working with Damien on the parcel combination, and that will be complete fairly soon. We're thinking about 2 weeks that should be done. Everything else we think we approved, and yeah, I look forward to your comments, and if you have any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Mr. Moreno, Mr. Rodriguez.
Good evening, Commission. So again, this item does involve an amendment to an existing conditional use permit, and that is for the Weber Basin's water treatment facilities out on Old Post Road that is located in an R16 zone, where a utility substation is a conditional use, which brings us here with the addition of the proposed addition of a new 5 million gallon tank. There are 5 approval criteria to consider with a conditional use permit amendment, and those are listed here. They will also be discussed in further detail as my presentation progresses this evening. And lastly, the Commission's decision is a final action on this item, and if approved, an updated conditional use permit will be issued to the applicant. So the location, again, is off of Old Post Road, 4826 Old Post Road, is one of the addresses attached to this development. The parcel that is highlighted in teal here is where the actual tank is proposed to be located. This is in the Southeast Ogden planning community. Right. Again, this is in the R110 single-family residential zone, and the property size is 7.2 acres in total. That's cumulative of all of the parcels that comprise this water treatment plant. And this is an aerial view of the whole of the water treatment plant with that aqua blue color representing the extent or the outer property lines. The solid color or the rectangular piece that's inside of the property boundary lines is the approximate location of the proposed new tank. And like Jesse said, you can see almost directly under it, in nearly the exact same footprint, is the current 4.3 million gallon water tank that is currently failing. And this proposal is to remove and replace that failing tank. This is the plats. So they're not completely straightforward, which is why I showed the aerial first. This was formed from 3 different plat maps, but it gives you an idea that these are pretty large parcels we're dealing with, and the cumulative size is it's a significant development. Again, over 7 acres. So the request, again, is to amend the existing conditional use permit for the Weber Basin Water Conservancy Districts water treatment plant, which exists at this location. The proposed building that is being replaced is just one of multiple buildings that comprise the total of the site. And the proposed replacement would increase the capacity of the site, but only marginally. In this context, only marginally, because although it's a 5 million gallon tank, it is replacing a 4.3 million gallon. So here's one of the proposed elevations. The exterior finish of the tank would be architectural concrete. It is textured, as you can see by this image, and it will be textured via a form liner and also colored via a chemical stain, which would provide additional durability and also visual aesthetic. So now I'll go ahead and start considering this proposal against the approval criteria. And consideration number 1, staff finds that the proposed addition will not be detrimental to persons or property, and in fact, it will mitigate some potential detriments to the community by replacing some of that failing infrastructure that exists on the site. Consideration number 2, the proposed is consistent with the general plan and is not contrary to any of its stated goals or vision strategies. Consideration number 3, the water treatment facility has been designed to be as compatible with the surrounding land uses as feasibly possible. And similarly, staff finds that the proposed addition is compatible with the development of the site. As you saw from the aerial, the site is quite large. The structures that exist on the site have ample setback from the property lines. There is single-family residential uses to the east and to the south of the property, but adequate screening and setback does exist for these structures. Also, there were additional conditions of approval put on Weber Basin with previous conditional use permit approvals, and the review of those previous approvals have found that Weber Basin has complied with all of those conditions of approval that have been put on them in the past, which did include screening the front property line, as seen from Old Post Road. Consideration number 4, the proposed tank will occupy, again, nearly the exact same footprint as 4.3 gallon currently outgoing. Circulation of the site will not be changed because of that, and also the site will function mostly as it currently does, just with slightly greater capacity. So staff does find that the proposed is compatible in design. And then lastly, consideration 5, by code, parcels require frontage on a public road, and the subject parcel where the proposed will be located, as well as other parcels in the development, lack the required frontage. But like Jesse said, he is currently working on staff, and he does have an unplatted parcel combination currently in and under review. Nevertheless, staff does recommend as a condition of approval that all the parcels that make up the development are combined successfully through an unplatted parcel combination process with the city. Given those findings, staff recommends approval of the proposed conditional use permit amendment, subject to the following 2 conditions. The various parcels that comprise the water treatment plant are combined via an unplatted parcel combination review with the city, and appropriate SWIP measures shall be implemented during future site work, and any necessary SWIP permits be obtained per state and local regulations.
One question, I mean, it's essentially the same footprint. How much taller is this new tank than the ones being replaced, elevation-wise?
So I have the height of the current tank. I think Jesse would be able to answer that question because he knows the height of the existing tank,
Okay.
which I do not.
Answer from here. Come up late. So I can provide those drawings of the existing tank, but essentially it will be the same height.
Okay. Yeah, there's not a significant increase in the elevation
No.
of it, okay.
I guess from an aerial view, you'll just see the ground. It's going to be at the same ground elevation. If anything, it might increase in depth, but overall, at
Okay.
the ground level, it will be the same. The 4.3 million gallon is a hopper style too, so it's essentially it kind of cuts back. So that increase in capacity is just going to be a square tank.
Okay.
So essentially, it's the same footprint.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions from commissioners? All right.
I'll make a motion. Wait, hold on. Let me pull it up here. So in regards to the amendment to the conditional use permit for the water treatment plant at 4826 Old Post Road to allow for the addition of a new tank. I move to approve the proposed amendment of the conditional use permit, subject to the following conditions: the various parcels that comprise the water treatment plant are combined via an unplatted parcel combination review with the city, and appropriate stormwater pollution prevention measures shall be implemented during future site work, and any necessary permits be obtained per state and local regulations.
Now, roll call vote, Ms.
Commissioner Aberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Amadov,
Yes.
Commissioner Ross,
Yes.
Commissioner Sando,
Yes.
Commissioner Shale,
Yes.
Commissioner Southwick,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Shinoda.
Number 4 on the agenda, conditional use for tardigrade. Mr. Hoplet.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jay Hofflick. I'm representing Tardigrade Builders. I'm the applicant for a conditional use permit for a 24-unit apartment building at 362 7th Street. And that's 7th Street at Washington, pretty much on that corner. Or not on the corner, but close to it. On the other side of the Maverick, if you're familiar with that intersection. The project is a 1.3 acre lot, zoned R3. We proposed 24 units. I think we've gotten 25 in there. 24 seems to be a good fit for a uniform-looking building. It's going to be comprised of brick and hardy plank. For the aesthetics, there'll be a steel entrance that is dark bronze there from the street. There'll be 49 parking spots, plenty of green space. We're working on amenities now. The exterior amenities and some interior amenities to add for the planning department's recommendations or requirements. And the building overall is about 26,000 square feet. It's comprised of 18 two-bedroom apartments, one of which is set aside for ADA, and the remaining 6 are single-bedroom apartments. It's an inner block lot that was formerly for storage and has just always been vacant. Attorney, do you have any questions for me?
Questions from Hoplet? Okay. Staff? Patrick?
Hello, everyone. I do want to make an amendment to the slide. Does it comply with the R3, not the Creative 9? This is for multifamily over 8 units. It's located at 362 7th Street in the R3 multifamily zone. It is also in the Lynn Community Plan, and the property size is about 1.3 acres, and the land is currently vacant. The request is the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for a 3-story, 24-unit apartment building. As you can see on the aerial photo, it is an interblock property surrounded by R2 and R3 zones to the north, R16 to the west, and C2 commercial to the east. These are the factors for consideration of a conditional use permit found in Ogden Municipal Code 1572. I'll just briefly go over these. You will have to determine if the use is not detrimental to persons or property, is consistent with the general plan, particularly the Lynn Community Plan. Is the use compatible with the character of the site and adjacent properties? Is the design compatible with the surrounding area, and is it compliant with the regulations and conditions of the R3 zone? But when looking at the first criteria, detrimental to persons or property, the site will have one access with a pavement width of 26 feet. This will allow for emergency and fire access. The road width will allow for passage of emergency vehicles into the site. And the proposed site plan does show that this would be wide enough at a width of 26 feet. Also, a traffic study was gathered. They gathered the existing and future traffic numbers from the following intersections of 7th and Washington Boulevard, and then the access ways and 7th Street. The current traffic numbers at these intersections were found to be at an acceptable level of service. Future levels in 2006 for the service area for 7th and Washington also showed that the future development would still provide adequate levels of service and no mitigation would be required. The full build out of the apartments will continue to be at an acceptable level of service. It is recommended by the traffic study that the access be striped and signage provided for safe ingress and egress. The southbound will be stop controlled movements, and traffic on 7th Street would be allowed to remain free flowing. This aerial photo is a photo of those sections that they took numbers from. The second criteria is it consistent with the general plan? In Exhibit A of the Lynn Community Plan, it states that higher density residential will be located between Wall Avenue and Washington Boulevard. This location is between these two major corridors and complies with the general plan consistency. Next is the use compatible. To the north is Loman View Retirement Apartments. This is an apartment complex that is similar, not nearly as tall, but as similar. And then to the east is the commercial. This development would allow for a transition between this commercial properties to the east and the residential single family to the west. Next, we have to consider the design of the proposed project. It will be the 3 stories, and this is the picture of what it would look like as a 3-story apartment building. The entrance will face 7th Street Each unit will be accessed by a common interior corridor, so it's not accessed by through a breezeway or anything like that. It's an interior corridor. The recessed balconies and varied materials will break up the mass of the building. As you can see, the primary exterior colors will be the dark red brown brick color and the off-white hardy flat panel siding. And then it will be accessed by the cocoa wood color underneath the windows, and the parapets and the balconies would be contrasted with the dark bronze color. Most of these materials are found in the surrounding area. Next, we have to look at compliance with regulations that the R3 zone allows for 8 units and could be 9 or more if conditional use permit was permitted. This can be found in Ogden Municipal Code 151327. The different intensities must comply with the design standards for multifamily. And these are the following standards. We have to look at building types, exterior materials, building windows, building orientation and main entrance, parking location, and amenity requirements. The building type, this is an elevation of the proposed development. There are different building types that can be chosen by the developer. Those types can include townhomes, courtyard apartment buildings, or apartment buildings taller than 2 stories with units placed above and below each other, and the individual units are accessed by a common interior corridor. Tardigrade has chosen this building type for their 3-story apartment building. Next is the exterior materials. This, I pointed out the different types of materials and where they would go. The exterior solid wall materials are limited to brick, stone, wood, stucco, and fibrous cement siding. And this is in OMC 1517-2A. The material chosen is brick veneer and cement siding in dark red and off-white colors. More information would have to be submitted to determine whether the brick veneer classifies as brick or the cement siding. But overall, the design of the building and the materials are compatible with the surrounding area. Next, we have to look at windows. The requirement for windows are the building should have windows that are positioned in line vertically with those windows on the ground level. Proposed apartment windows, as you can see in this example of the south elevation, these windows do line up and meet this requirement. Next is the building orientation and the main entrance. Building orientation and the main entrance will face 7th Street, even though it's set back in that inner block. The sign or the main entrance to the building will be closer to the east side. You can kind of see where it has the sign and then a overhang. That's the main entrance, and you should be able to see this from 7th Street. So this type of design complies with that. Next is parking location. The minimum number of required parking stalls for 24 units is 48 stalls. The parking for the development provides a total of 49 parking spaces. This includes 2 ADA stalls with the required access aisles. The number of spaces meet the required 2 stalls per unit. In the design standards for multifamily, it states that parking shall be limited to the side or rear of the building. Some of the parking is in the side of the building, but because of the unusual shape of the property, Some of the parking is located in the front of it. If the applicant can show that the development is located within 660 feet of mass transit, and the number of stops per day is at least 45, and some of the parking in front of the building could be reduced, and this requirement can be found in Ogden Municipal Code 1512-3 to reduce that. Up here on this slide, you'll see the southbound bus stop is approximately 465 feet, and the northbound bus stop on Washington is about 569 feet. This is measured from the property line to the stop, and if the applicant can prove that the stops equate to 45 or more, then we could think about reducing those parking stalls in front of the building. Next are the amenities. For apartment buildings over 16 units, there's a requirement to provide a combination of their open space and amenity areas, and a minimum of 400 square feet of interior amenity space. So as a condition of approval for this development, the required amenities must be provided. Overall, the apartment building development is not considered detrimental to persons or property, is compatible with the surrounding development and uses, and is compliant with the R3 zoning ordinance. And therefore, staff recommends approval of the conditional use permit on the following conditions. Provide striping and signage for ingress and egress in the access way connected to 7th Street. Provide amenities for occupants of the apartments. This is a combination of the interior 400 square feet of interior space and open space with exterior amenities. Provide the method of garbage collection and enclosure detail and location on the site plan. They didn't show this on their site plan. And provide a water-wise landscaping and irrigation plan per Ogden Municipal Code 1528-1. Are there any questions?
So why is this conditional use?
So Ogden Municipal Code 1327, well, actually it is 1517, 1 and 2. So whenever you go over the 8 allowed in the zone, as a conditional use.
8 units?
8 units.
Okay.
If you go over 9, then it's a conditional use.
The density is the
Is the
conditional use.
factor in
Okay. All right, thank you.
determining. Mhm. Yes.
So the driveway, the access, is large enough for 2 ways?
Mhm.
Okay. And how will you be addressing the brick veneer question?
As soon as we get more information, whether it's thin brick or if it's a veneer, either way, it would still comply with the requirements.
And the parking lot, backs up onto people's backyards, the residents there. What kind of, requirements are there to protect those neighbors from the glare from the parked cars?
So their landscaping is required to act as a buffer for that parking area.
Just landscaping, no fence or anything like that?
There isn't a fence requirement, I
Okay.
don't believe.
Those would only be required in the group dwelling code standard, but that's something that would be looked at as part of the conditional use of using a fence to mitigate impacts for screening, privacy, things of that nature.
So you could add that as a condition.
So there's no fencing at this point?
At this point, no.
I guess my biggest concern is just location of the ingress and egress in relationship to Maverick. I spent a lot of time going up and down that road, going to our project over on 9th Street. That's where I usually go down. And there's a lot of traffic in and out of that Maverick. A lot of traffic builds up on 7th, so I see I see a real challenge for the occupants there coming in and out of that access right next to Maverick. And then we're adding a bunch of additional apartment units, not adding any additional home ownership opportunities.
And like I said, there would be a stop sign for anybody exiting that. Anybody going in shouldn't really
Yeah,
encounter
I just think
anybody
it's gonna
from
be a
there.
real challenge getting out of that during.
Chair, I have a question. I guess this might be for the development company. Did you say there will be 24 one-bedroom units?
24 units total,
Okay,
and 18 two-bedroom and 6 one-bedroom.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
All right, commissioners, any other questions for applicants or staff?
I have a question, Chair. Is this area not in the location where we'd put a moratorium on, apartments?
That's the commercial zones.
Okay,
You know,
okay.
Chair, I wonder if there's any people that live in this area that are in the audience to talk on it?
Any public,
Public hearing. Add information, any information to give. In the past. So we invite you to, please limit your. Ready for a motion?
I guess I have another question, Chair. Where you brought up the fencing and other projects we've talked about like mitigating the light issues and, that disturbance. Is that all just for group dwellings? Then none of that would be required in this type of development unless we were to include it?
Yeah, you can include the fencing, it's not required, but as far as the lighting goes, everything has to point down and no more than 1 foot candle can move past the property line. So, we do take lighting into consideration, and the proposed lighting is all facing down.
Are there any other things that you guys look at for group dwellings that would be missed with this conditional use permit?
This isn't considered a group dwelling, so
Right.
we have to look at the code for R3 and the conditional use requirements for multifamily, which is found in Chapter 13.
Yeah, I'll just jump in. Group dwellings has requirements for separation of driveways from property lines, which apartment doesn't. It has requirements for amenities within the open space, which the apartment standards don't. Has requirements for exterior fencing, which the apartments don't. Has certain requirements for architecture, and patios and pedestrian ways that a single apartment building doesn't. You find that there are impacts to neighbors that since it is a conditional use permit, you can add those as conditions.
So what are the amenity requirements for the R3?
So it can include a multitude of, there's a big list in chapter 13, so outdoor space, playground, it just all depends on what they can fit in. Interior space would be like a common meeting room.
But
as an
in terms of
amenity.
external, outside amenities, we don't have a minimum requirement. Pergola, picnic tables, any sort of,
They need to have at least 3, I believe.
okay. All right. Sure, if you have specific amenities that you're planning on, that'd be great too.
Yeah, that, so we've, just today, we worked out the conceptual, exterior amenities, and we're gonna put in a, gas barbecue, or a gas fire pit with 2 sets of tables with chairs and an outdoor barbecue. And they're gonna be in the southeast, area of the building, to the east side of, actually the east side, southeast corner of the building.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, I have a thought. I don't think a fence around the whole property would necessarily be necessary, especially with Maverick and with the retirement center there. My concern would be there on the south side with those homes. They're gonna be butted up right next to a parking lot. It could detract from their property. I would almost want to maybe require a fence where they are right up next to a primary residence.
Single families?
Single fam, that's the
Yeah.
word I was looking for, thank you. The single-family residences, but not necessarily by the Maverick or the retirement home.
I guess the only question is, does screening it all the way around benefit residents of apartments? Them some privacy from Maverick and from their retirement. To me,
True.
we're adding a lot of density here.
Mm-hmm.
Going vertical, which is all fine. I don't love that we're not adding anything available for ownership opportunities, but so be it. I think fully fencing the property would be beneficial to both the apartment tenants as well as the surrounding properties.
Would you go all the way down, or would you stop here? Would you go all the way to the road?
To the access.
Because then you're just gonna have a tunnel. Or would it just be?
Sure, on the
I
west
guess
side.
if you're that single family to the west of it, you gotta,
Yeah.
what would your? And I'm not sure the answer on that. Maybe,
Maybe this side?
but I do think privacy from the Maverick is beneficial to both parties. You're right, you do create a tunnel, so that's,
Yeah.
I'm not sure on that. but I
You
do
could
think
do just the one side. And leave this side open so they can walk over.
Do we have a street view on that 7th Street currently? I'm just
I do right here.
trying to see what that,
I think I got a very good, I have aerials, but I don't think I've got,
No.
well, if the aerial shows it, that's probably.
the location.
Okay, there, go back one. You got a house pretty close there.
Do we know how close the driveway will be to that house on the west?
I'm not exactly sure on that distance, but there is required to be landscaping. There is a fence already there.
Chain link fence, right?
And then 2 houses down, that bigger development, that's multifamily as well.
Hard to tell, but there's got.
So there's a single-family home, multifamily.
Multifamily.
So I understand that this is a conditional use permit, but I kind of feel like we're ignoring that this is a group dwelling and we're, like, all the factors that were just listed off. If we approve this now, we won't be able to go back and add any of that items in, right, as a conditional use?
No, because this is final.
Yeah.
Chair, I have a question. Do you know how many, like, is this, multi-family home that's already there, is that 8 units, or is that 4, is it 6, do you know?
Unaware of how many units.
5 and 8, okay, thank you. Good job,
CMU.
Mm.
Oh, okay, okay.
Not the zone.
What was that?
So there's an existing wall along the north part of that, for that retirement apartment building.
With concrete.
We have no problem adding a fence. We have really good relationship, especially with the owners of the house, directly west of the entrance to the lot.
Yeah.
And we've had good communications all around. We've helped each other out with landscaping and snow removal, things like that. So a fence, we want to be good neighbors, and a fence is not a big deal. We're happy with that.
Would you think of a fence that matches the facade of your apartment building? Or what's your thoughts on what kind of fence?
My immediate thoughts, would probably be a dark bronze, not plastic, but a metal, modern looking fence that would match the aesthetic of the building. And, to clarify on the brick veneer is just a standard brick wall. The technical term is brick veneer when it's a non-structural wall, but it's a lot like the modern.
So it's a full-size normal brick?
Yes, yeah. We looked at going with thin brick, and it's about the same cost as a normal brick. With the normal brick, the modern practice that you see on most of the modern buildings around.
Can you specify exactly which borders proposing a? I think, in my mind, it's where there isn't current fencing. So with the exception of the CMU fence between the applicant's property and the retirement center, wherever there isn't fencing, be appropriate to put a screening fence. And, I think frankly what the applicant mentioned in terms of a metal fence that's compatible with the architecture and the materials of the building is much more attractive than a vinyl fence. So my thought is that, and maybe let on that border to the west of the driveway, let the applicant work out whatever height is agreeable to them and the adjacent property owner, because they might like a lower fence for the fence, and I think that's adequate. But I think the fully screened and property is the boundaries of the property is, and to me that helps support the conditional use of the properties. I like the building architecturally, and I think it's good, nicely designed and good quality materials, and with good amenities for the residents there. I think it'll be a nice addition. Wish it was condos, but it's not the world we're in right now, so.
Any other comments or questions from commissioners?
Chair, I just have one comment. As far as the fencing goes, I think it would, a modern fence sounds nice, but I think a privacy fence would be, you know, more desirable for the people who are already living there. Maybe, perhaps, something just solid. Not, because when I think of a modern metal fence, I think of like wrought iron with the slats that you can see through.
I guess I thought that's what the applicant was talking about, so maybe clarify that. Is it?
The fence that I was considering was a solid fence.
Okay.
There's these, fence posts which come in like an H shape, each column, and they're
Oh.
rounded into the ground,
Yeah.
and then you drop the slats in.
Okay,
To give you
yeah.
privacy.
Mhm.
My only concern would be that,
And-
the neighbor closest to us, she has a garden set up there. I don't want to ruin her garden setup,
Mhm.
with that. But I think the comment about the fence height adjustment, we could go with her and see what,
Okay.
put that in. Additionally, all the lighting on the site is, dark sky approved. That was in our submittal, and with baffles, so they go right in and out.
How do pedestrians access development?
There's a sidewalk that's the closest to the Maverick side. And so we have a concrete sidewalk that goes to the entrance of the building. And actually all, and the south and the west side building.
Do you know the setback from that house on the west, where the driveway will be? How close will the entrance be to the house on the west?
I think it's 6 feet. Or the property line, you know, I'd only be guessing. I have the plans here.
Oh, that last picture.
Could you come up to the microphone and state your name?
I think we have about 10
I
feet
think
there.
you're supposed to have, yeah,
We have about 10.
and I think you're supposed to have
10 or 15 feet, yeah. I'm
10
Dennis
feet.
Law. I'm also involved with the project as an owner.
I think,
We had a good relationship with the neighbors for 3 years now. This is a family project. It's not, something that we're gonna roll out and on down the road. It's something that we're in for the long haul. So we wanna be good neighbors and good part of the community. The landscaping along the south side of our lot and then on the west side of the driveway, actually on both sides of the driveway, will mitigate a lot of the light and a lot of the privacy that's involved, especially along where those two houses are. There'll be larger trees there, not just bushes. There'll be both. So that's been designed to contain some of the noise and lighting problems. But again, you know, we wanna have this look nice. We want an attractive fence around it anyway. I guess if I was gonna have my druthers, I would prefer an open fence, like a chain link or something like that, or not necessarily chain link, it's not that attractive, but along the east side, just because of the light, the natural light that comes in, and like you mentioned, looking down, like you're looking down a tunnel. You know, anyway, those are just some of my thoughts. Dennis Law, LAW.
Another question from Mr. Hofflick. What do you call the motion? How should we phrase the eight posts?
I don't know the exact technical term. I've,
I want to be really specific because, the final action
Mhm.
and it needs to be really specific.
can you look it up? You're not already on
So
there.
I would call it an H-shaped fence post with lateral solid slab.
I don't think we ever got an answer about the drive.
Oh, how far it is from the house?
Yeah.
I think it's about 10, maybe 15 feet, the driveway from the house.
Isn't it a minimum of 10? Standard, Joe?
Oh, yeah, minimum
Should we just say privacy fence?
Mm-hmm.
Would that be sufficient?
I don't know if that'd be a privacy.
What he's recommending?
How do you, no, because it sees, you can see through
We
it.
can just say a fence
It
that,
wouldn't-
keeps noise and light from them, then, I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, if they're
Yeah.
comfortable with that, and I think it sounds, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
to me, that sounds a lot nicer, or a more attractive product and a better,
Okay,
better aesthetic than a vinyl
Vinyl.
privacy fence,
I
so
agree.
if the applicant's comfortable with that, I think we ought to specify it.
Yeah, we're comfortable with that, thank you.
I mean,
Question-
I think it'll turn out a
Yeah.
nice
What-
feature of the project.
You mentioned a family project or product. This development project is, who will maintain it once it's built and going over? Is there a,
We will maintain it, the owners of the building. So it's a build with a long-term hold. Dennis is also building the project.
will there be on-site management?
There won't be on-site management, but we wouldn't be opposed to having, local, maintenance for emergency issues. We're in the Salt Lake Valley,
Mm.
not too far away,
Mhm.
but.
Yes, I was thinking on the fence, on the driveway, just my thoughts here. We talked about working with the, property owner on the west, but on the east, just the driveway area, I would be okay with not requiring a fence, just to keep it open, because you're not really, nobody's living there.
Mm.
And then if they are walking, they can walk quicker into,
There's a holding.
There's a,
is there a holding
That's
wall?
what it is, there's a detention pond.
Okay,
it looks
there
like
would be
there's a fence there too already, which
Yeah, there's an
would be
existing.
sufficient.
Yeah, so I don't think we need to require one there. And then on the back of the property, there's already one there, it sounds.
So would you say like the west, south, and then the top right corner?
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Once you get past the driveway on the east side, what's there currently?
Get a fence.
The fence, but it's like the back of Maverick. Maybe when Maverick starts, they put
It-
up their fence.
Yeah, Maverick has a, galvanized chain link fence. So I think in, wherever we border residential or residences,
Yeah, that's.
privacy.
And then you got the,
My,
pretty good sized building.
And I think we'll add a fence anyway, especially where enterprise car,
Yeah.
or storage is.
that
It's
top
just
right corner.
Vehicles, and there's a lot of trash and debris that gets
Yeah.
tossed over the fence.
My only concern with working with that homeowner on the west side is that they may not always be the homeowner there, making it more standard than customized to them. I don't know if that's a factor we want to consider or not.
I think once the fence established,
Okay, throwing it out there.
and it's on the applicant's property, so the future homeowner's not gonna have any
Right.
Yeah,
say, the right to remove that or anything.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
we
we
have a
will
good,
have a fence for sure.
We'll probably sell it to them anyway.
yeah.
But if they
um,
want like a 4-foot fence to keep the sun on their garden, there's not really any privacy with that, but we're okay with it. All the way back.
Yeah, that family owns 2 lots on that street. I think they own, not the house, directly to the west, but, the second one over.
That's what I'm thinking.
And they've owned those houses for a very long time.
All right.
Hey,
Sounds complicated.
ready for a motion?
Sounds like a complicated
Yeah,
motion.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've addressed everything, and
You want me to do it?
Can we work together on the motion?
Okay. I thought we will.
Yeah.
Concerning the conditional use permit for a 24-unit apartment building located at 362 7th Street. We recommend approval for a conditional use permit for 24 apartment units in the R3 zone on the following conditions. 1, provide striping and signage for ingress and egress in the access way connected to 7th Street. Provide amenities for the occupants of the apartments. This is a combination of 400 square feet of interior and open space with exterior amenities. Provide the method of garbage collection and enclosure detail and location on site plan. Provide a waterwise landscaping and irrigation plan per 1528-1. And we would like to add, provide a fence, a H-shaped fence post with lateral solid slats that go on the west side, the back is already done, the east side until the driveway, and not require a fence on the east side of the driveway unless they want it. And south side.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, the south side.
Mm-hmm.
And then work with the property owner on the west side of the driveway and figure out what fence would go best there. With those conditions, we recommend approval.
Second the motion.
I have a motion by Commissioner Sandown and a second by Commissioner Southwick. Roll call. Ms. Pagano?
Commissioner Almadov?
Yes.
Commissioner Ross?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandow?
Yes.
Commissioner Shale?
Yes.
Commissioner Southwick?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Aberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Shinoda?
Item 5, preliminary group dwelling,
Oh, there's no.
CUP at 397 and 89 Harrisville Road. Applicant, Mr. Smith.
Yes,
Would you like
let me
to
go back and find
comment
it.
on your project?
I'm Brian Smith, and I'm representing MKIB Real Estate LLC. And we are proposing an 81-unit, individually owned townhome community on this project. For us, we're trying to navigate, and we've had a couple CRT meetings, and we've done the rezone, and we've gone through some of the process. Yesterday, we got back some of the kind of notes on it, and so we've been working to mitigate those as well. And so we believe that what they've put in there, we don't disagree with pretty much anything that's in there, and so we're okay with the conditions on moving forward. Our goal is to have a nice community. We're looking for a pickleball court. We want, it's the Villages at the Garden, or the Village at the Gardens, which we're going to have some seating areas, some trees. There's going to be essentially, we've been going back and forth on some of the amenities, but there's going to be a playground and probably a barbecue area. So probably be 4 official kind of outside, outdoor use areas. And then there'll be quite a bit of sidewalk that people can walk around, and it's almost like a trail going to the different areas. And so right now, I've been working on that. I have kind of an updated plan, but the one that was submitted is the one that's been reviewed completely, and we don't have a fully updated one. But we're working with the city and with Joe and Damien and
Bart?
Yeah, Bart. Sorry. And the goal is to have, they're going to be about 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath units, a current plan that we have. They'll have rear-loaded garages. They'll have a spot where they can charge an electric vehicle. And so there will be 2 parking stalls in the garage on each. And so I don't know what questions that you guys would have, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Applicant, the staff presenter.
Okay, again, this item involves a request for the preliminary approval of a group dwelling. And as somewhat discussed in the last item, group dwelling is a series of buildings, multiple main buildings on one parcel or group of parcels, but each parcel has multiple family dwellings on them. So if the item is approved, it will just be for the preliminary approval, and this item will return to the commission for final approval of the group dwelling, and that is ideally after the applicant has met all of the corrections of the corrections reports with the various staff reviewers. Also, if approved, a conditional use permit so that this property can be used as a group dwelling, which is a conditional use in the zone, but also site plan and civils, all of those will still continue to be worked out with staff. So when reviewing a preliminary conditional or a preliminary group dwelling, there are 8 approval criteria associated with that review, and discussion on those 8 approval criteria were included in the staff reports provided, and also summarize those in this presentation, as well as providing staff's findings considering each approval criteria. The subject property is located on 2 different parcels right now, 397 North Harrisville Road and also 399 North Harrisville Road. This is located in the R2S zone. It was approved for a rezone of the property. It was formerly located in an R2 zone, but it was rezoned for this purpose, which the R2S zone does allow for single-family row housing, which is what the applicant wishes to develop, and those single-family row houses will be subdivided for individual ownership. This is in the Wynn planning community, and it is on the north side of Ogden, as you can see in this zoning map. Just north of North Street is Harrisville. The cumulative lot size is 4.9 acres. Here is depicted the plat map with the property in blue. And like I said before, this exists currently in 2 separate parcels. There is a tail at the southernmost end. It doesn't reflect on the plat map yet, but that was recently acquired via a lot line adjustment with the neighboring property, the Buddhist Church of Ogden. So although it does exist currently in 2 different parcels, that's not necessarily an issue because subdivision, again, will be a part of this project as it goes forward. And these 2 parcels can be combined and then re-subdivided for the individual ownership of each unit all in one process. Here is the site aerial for some additional context with the approximate location of those property lines, again shown in the aqua color here. And as for the request, again, the final goal is a group dwelling or multiple buildings in one multiple multifamily buildings in one development. what's proposed currently is 14 buildings and a total of 81 single-family row houses. And like the applicant has already stated, they have been working with staff to come up with this site plan. They have been to CRT, and they have consulted with both fire marshal, engineering, and planning departments in order to get the internal circulation that's proposed here. Here is just a blow-up of the proposed site plan. Again, 14 buildings, and those 14 buildings will exist in 4plexes, 6plexes, and 7. Some of the amenities that are provided are a children's playground, football court, community garden. Depicted here are the building elevations. So you might find that these are different than what was included in your staff report. They are. They're similar but different. These were provided after the initial submittal, but we are in review 1 still. So this was kind of like a secondary submittal that I wasn't able to include in the staff report. Nevertheless, this is currently what the applicant has. Some of what would have been the design requirements are already addressed in this secondary iteration. For example, masonry is brought up to encompass the whole bottom floor. So from grade to the top of the bottom floor is all proposed to be masonry all around the building. It still doesn't quite meet all of the design standards for a group dwelling building. For example, we do require proportionate use of primary materials on all 4 sides. And each building shall only have 2 primary materials. And that's kind of similarly like the vertical board and batten and the horizontal party board is actually 2 different primary materials. Whereas what you see at the apex is more of like a secondary material, and the use of that is allowed. But it's a work in progress, and we're getting there. These are some of color boards that the applicant has provided to us. You can see there's a lot of earth tones and a lot of muted tones that are not at all, or they are, they don't conflict with our zoning code at all or design requirements. Here is the color boards continued. So we will have a variety of different masonry materials, variety of building colors. Now to our considerations. Consideration 1, staff finds that the proposal does meet the area standards of the ordinance. So the combination of all the land of this development would allow for a total of 85 units. So the applicants aren't maxing out their request by any means. Also, design standards are not entirely met, as noted before. Most notably, there is no combination of alternate building types. So we're at nearly 5 acres with this development, and a group dwelling of that size would require at least 3 different building types. So some of the approvable building types in this zone would be single-family residential houses, cottage homes, and also duplexes, and stacked units of any variety of those. And this proposal, as it currently exists, is just single-family row houses. So a combination of those would need to be included. And for that purpose, staff recommends the following condition of approval. The development will provide at least 2 more alternate building types to provide housing variety and additional visual. Consideration 2, staff finds that the proposed interior traffic, or the traffic circulation at the site, as discussed before, is found to be adequate and not adversely impactful. And that's been found adequate by all of the reviewing staff thus far, which includes engineering, fire, and planning. Consideration number 3, so a review of the Ogden City Transportation Master Plan found no future plans that would be interrupted by what is proposed. However, to mitigate the potential for future interruptions and to ensure compliance, staff recommends the following 2 conditions of approval: that a conditional access permit is obtained from UDOT that indicates their approval of the access and all other work proposed in their right-of-way. Their right-of-way is Harrisville Road, by the way. And also that a traffic control plan is provided prior to the issuance of any permits for the project. Consideration 4, when considering the topography of the site, it's very flat. There is gradual sloping, but it's not anything dramatic. There is a natural feature on the site of note. There's a current drainage ditch, and because of that, staff recommends the following 2 conditions of approval: that written approval from the owner of the said irrigation ditch is provided, or written approval is provided from that owner for the relocation of that irrigation ditch, and also that an easement is provided for the same, and also that location of all utility lines will be accurately depicted on a utility plan, and requested utility specifications are depicted on that same plan. Consideration 5, staff finds that the proposed architecture is compatible with the character of the neighborhood, and compatibility will be further increased as the applicant meets staff's current comments, as included in the attached staff report. Nevertheless, we do provide the following condition of approval: that the architectural elevations are amended to be compliant with the applicable building design standards of the zoning ordinance. Consideration 6, staff finds that the proposed will not adversely impact neighboring properties, and to further mitigate any potential adverse impacts, staff recommends the following conditions of approval: that necessary public improvements, for example, curb, gutter, sidewalk, developed at the site where they are currently lacking to city or UDOT standards as applicable; that a financial guarantee is established with the city to ensure the adequate installation of those public improvements and also landscaping; and that a fence of approvable material and design is developed on the site, on those interior property lines that aren't adjacent to the public right-of-way; and that a stormwater is accurately calculated and appropriately managed, standards; and then lastly, a SWIP plan which satisfies all state and local requirements is also provided. Consideration 7, the proposed doesn't yet comply with all open space requirements, to include the total outdoor recreation area that's currently proposed doesn't meet minimum requirements. The provision of trees that's currently proposed doesn't meet the minimum quantity that's required. And then also there are a lack of shading structures where there needs to be in recreation areas. And to mitigate these issues, staff recommends a minimum of 15% of the total project areas developed as outdoor recreation space, and that space will meet code requirements, and that any gaps in pedestrian infrastructure throughout the site are corrected, create a continuous walking path throughout the whole development, and it does connect all homes with the outdoor recreation spaces that are provided on the site. And then we're finally here. Consideration 8. The design requirements of the code are not entirely met, as we discussed before. The elevations and floor plans do lack features and architectural variety that is required by code, because of which, among other things, staff recommends the following conditions of approval. Proposed building elevations and floor plans are amended to provide the amenities and design features that are required by code. That the site plan and landscape plan are amended to comply with the development and landscaping standards of the ordinance. That an irrigation plan and tree preservation plan are provided for staff and commission review prior to final approval. And then lastly, that the project is subdivided to allow for individual ownership. So given the stated findings and also those stated recommended conditions of approval, staff would recommend the approval of this preliminary group dwelling, subject to those conditions, again, that were stated, and also that are enumerated on this slide, and also that are enumerated on pages 2, 3, and 4 of the provided staff report.
Questions?
And if, Chair, if just add one clarifying point with the architecture, and differentiating among the units and the different building typologies. Project would be allowed to contain all row housing if each of the units are broken up into individual designs, having vertical breaks in the roof line, materials, and they would be allowed to have multiple materials on a building. It's just only two types per unit if they're going to do that option of different building typologies for each unit on the building. So it doesn't change any of the recommendations. I just thought I'd point that out as a clarification and an option.
I had a question about that,
Mr. Avery?
and maybe you clarified it, but I didn't understand. So conditional approval number 1, where it says at least 3 alternate building types. So in the plan, it has a 6-plex, a 4-plex, and a 7-plex. That would be 3 different types.
The typology can be met by having variation in the design of the row housing, so they're not all one style, but that they can break up individual styles for the units, which I think is what is being attempted in this. It just would be 2 different materials on each building, each unit on those buildings to break those up, and could have different architectural styles. They don't need to have like single family duplex. It could be row housing is one type, but it allows, if it's all row housing, they need to break up those typologies by unit, and those are like roof breaks, horizontal breaks, and also with different designs, materials, and architectural types.
Even though they have the 3 different types, they have to look different? Is that what I'm hearing?
So they don't have the 3 different types because they're all row housing. Row housing is considered just...
I'm just recalling the approval we did on that. The last one we just talked about, there's a development to the south of it that's all townhouses. And I brought that up then, that it was all the same townhouses, and so that's why I thought it was similar to this, but now you're saying it's different, so that's where I'm confused.
Yeah, and that is good to be confused, because, yeah, that was a different, there was a different interpretation at that.
And this is a larger site too. You're required
Yeah.
more because it's a larger site.
Yeah, that one would only needed the 2 different typologies. This one.
Did that one end up having 2 different typologies?
Under a different interpretation, yeah.
One more thing. I mean, my thought is 17 conditions kind of brings me back to Kathy, and that's way too many to move forward at this time, but I would recommend we get that fixed first. I mean, that's 17 conditions, though.
You know what? Having been on both sides of this now, I guess I've got a little different perspective. That's a lot of detail, but it's all specific detail that the petitioners can work with. And by pushing them back and not making a decision on this causes delays, it cost unnecessary cost increases. I mean, one thing to sit on this side and look at it, and when you're on the other side, go through this process for 18 months, as I've done. I don't have a problem with a lengthy, detailed set of, because it gives them everything they need to move this forward, and they have to resubmit anyway. So I would suggest that the number of those is not problematic in us making the decision on this, what we have before us today. I've got a question just from, do you have any idea of what percentage of open space this currently shows? Because to me, it feels like there's a real lack of that.
Yeah, I agree. This development is called the Village at the Gardens, and there was nothing gardeny about the plans we saw.
There's a garden.
Okay, there's a small garden. I mean, look at the green space.
So that 15% requirement is for outdoor recreation space, and not all of the green space that's even provided would count towards that or contribute to that. The gardens definitely would, the pickleball court would, and then also the children's playground. And with some of these other spaces, there's potential to make it count or contribute to that 15%. As of right now, with what's proposed, it does.
You know, and I mean, I get that, you know, they're fronting, you know, right on the edge of the property, and that circulation coming that way. It just feels like a lot of units and not a lot of open space. So I'm just curious as to what we're looking at, what you anticipate, and so I guess it comes, you know, when they come back to meet all that, there may be a somewhat different configuration, meet that standard. I was just curious as to.
And I don't think I answered your question. I think you wanted to know the percentage that is open space. The applicant did provide I didn't include it in the slide, but on the landscape sheet, they did provide the calculation for what is landscaped. That would be a different calculation for what is actually recreational open space. And that is something that I provided or that I requested in the corrections report.
Fair enough.
Fair. I have a question. Oh.
Comment.
I'm just looking at I guess these are where the dumpsters are. There's 2 dumpsters for 81 households. That 2. Where is will you have like garbage removal? Where will all the garbage go? Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what that is? I thought they were dumpsters.
Yeah, so there's 4 on there, just so
4.
you know, so that'd be
Okay.
like 1 dumpster for, right? But we could also do a double dumpster somewhere too. And as far as we sat with the engineer to look at the open space and what the requirements are, and then I spoke with Joe today about it. We didn't completely understand, but I think that we can get to the 15% that you guys are looking for. We're going to lose, and change a little bit. I sent this over, but it didn't quite make it, but I'd be happy to share this with you. The idea is that all of the walkways are going to connect up. You have gardens. There's some trees that we're going to maybe try to save, and there's some pretty trees over here. And at the top part, there's trees. The space in between the townhomes is 22 feet of. It's going to be grass area, and it'll be parked on both sides. It'll have sidewalk and you can walk around on that part. We'll have benches throughout at the different locations. We actually, according to my calculations, we exceed the 15% by about 2,000 square feet. The other thing that counts is the porches on the houses. Counts 30% of that counts towards the overall. And so as long as the porch is 100 square feet, you get to count 30% of that. Am I getting this right, Joe, or not?
Sounds like it. If they've got, we'd have to look at it, but yeah, I think, because a certain percentage do need to have balconies or patios. Patios can be on the front or the back, we've determined, so it just depends on what.
Yeah, I thought it was the
classified
size
as
that mattered, not,
Where do they?
not whether it's on the front or back, but I could be wrong.
That's one of them, yeah.
As far as, I know we have some conditions, but if you look at the conditions, a lot of them, when you submit for the preliminary, they don't even require those to be submitted. And so I would say probably 10 of those are things that weren't required. And then the ones that were required, we're going to work on. So I'd appreciate if you'd consider that on that side, and if there seems to be, if there's a disagreement on open space, then we'll address that in that part. As far as what we're trying to do and why the second design is because we understood this is how I understood it, and maybe this helps everybody. They want it to look like every townhome was built almost like different, like at a different time. So different colors, different styles. And if you do that, then you don't have to do the three different types. The three different types sounds hard, but you just look at the very north where you have the fourplex. We X'd out one of those, then you would have a duplex and a single-family home. All of a sudden, we qualify. Yeah. And then we don't have to go through all the architectural stuff. But the villages, the idea is right now to just do the different styles because we think it would look cooler. I mean, that's it. But to address it, it would be very simple. Like, we'd X out that, and then you'd have a single family, and you'd have a duplex, and then you'd have townhomes, and that would meet the requirement. Am I right, Joe?
That's correct.
And so, although it seems far away, I think it's actually pretty close, and I think that we'll work through the conditions. As far as the one condition with the ditch and getting the neighbor and stuff like that, that one can be solved by us just going underground with, and nobody uses that over there anyways, but we can do that and connect it in, and then we wouldn't need to have like permission or an easement made for them. We can just do it on our own property. And so there's solutions to all these things. I didn't get we got the review back yesterday, and we've been working pretty hard to try to resolve some of the community open space, but there's going to be a lot of walkways, and there'll be different places that have garden-y type area with benches, and then you'll have, instead of 3 that are required, we're actually doing 4, with the barbecue area. Where I think it would fit best on this one, the redesigned version, would be where the parking is. And so I think we're closer than it seems. I know 17 sounds like a lot, but a lot of those, with this new design, you're going to have a minimum of 10, right? Anyways, probably because it's just not submitted. It's not required when you submit for the preliminary.
It's a preliminary review, so yeah, there's going to be a lot. Or differentiate that from other applications.
Do you have just curious, do you have an idea on price point at all?
That is like the question of all questions, but
Of course,
it's probably
depends on tariffs in part.
a little bit below 400 or a little below above.
So you're going to be in that range where there's the opportunity to get that.
I think that they can qualify for the city
and the state money stuff.
Yeah, and it's individually owned, and I do think we meet the requirements, but we'll have to discuss that more, whether the porches count or don't. And worst case scenario, we have to eliminate a unit or to open up more open space. I mean, that's the worst case.
So your price point meets what governor's target is for affordable housing, attainable housing, and it's 81 units can be individually owned. So thank you for that. That's a huge,
Yeah.
huge addition to the city in my mind.
Yeah. If the last applicant had to go through what I'm going through, they would have way more than 4 on theirs, because the group dwellings have way more qualifications than the grandfathered in R3, R4.
Any other questions from commissioners?
This is I have a question. This is obviously going to be an HOA, so it'll all be maintained by the HOA.
Consideration other than what is packet? Motion.
A lot of reading on this one. Long one. And he's gonna do it.
You want me to do
Go
it?
for it.
Okay.
Before you're a good reader.
Preliminary group dwelling of 81 dwelling units at 397 and 399 Harrisville Road. Finding that the proposal meets the area and the design standards of the code, provides adequate interior traffic circulation that does not adversely impact neighboring properties, would not interrupt or restrict traffic patterns, is compatible with the topography and features of the site, is compatible with the character of the neighborhood, does not adversely impact neighboring properties, provides open space that would meet the needs of the residents, and meets the design requirements of the code when following conditions are met. We recommend approval of the preliminary group dwelling with these 17 conditions. Number 1, the development will provide at least 3 alternate building types, as an alternate building type is defined by code to provide housing variety and/or additional visual interest to the development. 2, a conditional access permit is obtained from UDOT that indicates their approval of the access and all other work proposed in the right-of-way. 3, a traffic control plan is provided prior to the issuance of any permits for the project. 4, provide written approval of the owner of the irrigation ditch for the relocation of said ditch and establish an easement for said ditch. 5, the location of all utility lines will be accurately depicted on a utility plan, and requested utility specifications are depicted on the utility plan or provided in a supplementary document. 6, the architectural elevations are amended to be compliant with the applicable building design standards of the zoning ordinance. 7, necessary public improvements such as curb, gutter, and sidewalks are developed at the site to Ogden City standards or UDOT standards where applicable. 8, a financial guarantee is established with the city to ensure the adequate installation of landscaping and public improvements as they are approved in the final approved plan set. 9, a fence of approvable material and design is developed on the site at those interior portions of the development that do not front a public road. 10, stormwater is accurately calculated and appropriately managed per Ogden City standards. 11, a stormwater pollution prevention plan, SWPPP, which satisfies state and local requirements is provided. The project will be developed with a minimum of 50% of the total area being developed as outdoor recreation space, and that space will be developed to the standards set forth in the zoning ordinance to include shading, tree count, and amenity standards. 13, gaps in pedestrian infrastructure are corrected to create a continuous walking path throughout the development that connects all homes with the on-site outdoor recreation spaces. 14, the proposed building elevations and building floor plans are amended to provide the amenities and design features that staff has identified as missing and required by code. 15, the site plan and landscape plan are amended to comply with the development and landscaping standards of the ordinance prior to final site plan approval. 16, an irrigation plan and tree preservation plan are provided for staff and commission review prior to final site plan approval. 17, the dwelling units are subdivided to allow for the individual ownership of each unit. With those conditions, we recommend approval.
Second the motion.
A motion by Commissioner on the second.
Commissioner Ross?
Yes.
Commissioner Sando?
Yes.
Commissioner Shale?
Yes.
Commissioner Southwick?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Aberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Almadov?
Yes.
Commissioner Shinoda?
Yes.
Great. Good luck on your project. Next item on the agenda is agenda item 6, preliminary subdivision. the applicant, Ms. Trubay here. Would you like to tell us a little about your project?
The one coming up or the one that's leaving? Who are you talking about?
Hi, my name is Joanna Drubay, representing Drubay Redevelopment Company. This is the development that will be on Washington Boulevard between 17th Street and more or less the Ogden Arch. It has two four-story residential buildings and a restaurant, a trailside restaurant, 110 units. We've been working on this project for quite a while, and we've been always trying to incorporate the Ogden River and the trail amenities there. So now we are at the subdivision phase.
I have a question. These are apartment buildings, not owner occupied, right?
Correct.
This already has been approved by the city council, right? By the city council.
Staff. Oh, it is Joe. Thank you.
Chair, members of the commission, it is really good to be with you tonight. And I was thinking about it, as like many of you are probably too new to remember when we look at this, and too long going, in my opinion, because there's been so many complexities to this project. And so, just kind of give a little background and a little orientation. Bays had reached out with the city years ago and looking at developing a multifamily project in this commercial zone. And it's been so long ago, it was before we had the code that was adopted last year with the restriction of multifamily in the commercial zones. This one was done in a special way in that there is, Joanna alluded to, that the project really was heavy focused on trying to make a project that interacted well with the river trail. It's a key area and key location in the city, next to the arch, next to the river and the river trail itself. So it's near the rodeo grounds. And so there was a lot of design and review that occurred with the Planning Commission. At that time when we did the rezone, it wasn't just a rezone to C3, but also involved a conditional overlay, which included a development agreement. So there was a lot of development agreement design work that was done. We had concerns about the river and how much there was a lot of land the city owned around the river there, and if some of that could be integrated into this project, how much would we need to retain? The applicant had hired a engineering company that the city has used to do river restoration and determine the riparian area needed to be preserved so we could make future improvements with the river. They had also been working with UDOT. There was UDOT-owned parcels that were on the property that the city was then able to acquire. And then with the improvements that will be made with this river trail, and with along the river trail, there's also parking and trailside cafe, would be able to enhance that site. So there was a lot of discussion and a lot of back work that some of you may remember. But we're finally there, getting through all of those processes and getting to this point. So we're at the part that I know and love, and that's where we're subdividing and doing site plan review. So just be aware that today what we're looking at is really just subdivision. We're trying to mix up what's multiple parcels of land and make them into one, into consolidated lots. And this would be looking at 3 lots. So you can kind of see this, and it looks like a mess because it is a mess, and there's lots of, that was the other thing, is we had a road, did a partial vacation of River Drive. Part of the subdivision will be looking at that, where there's going to be some dedication back to the city, which was part of that development agreement. So again, this project is being looked at as a mixed use. There's 2 large apartment buildings. They were going to be taller, but taken so long that it's not economical to add the height that they had originally. So we've had to remove a level of the building, and so we have less units that are being developed. Part of that development agreement was just really in relation to how close it was to the urban core. It's right next to the downtown, but yet was outside of it, not able to use the density that's available, and that was part of those considerations. So I know I'm blabbing, but I just kind of want to give back history that this is something that the city's been looking at for a while. It does involve multiple properties. Some of those are excluded. On the plat on the right, there's 2 parcels that unfortunately weren't able to be acquired to be part of this project, so we'll be wrapping around that. This just give you a layout of the site plan, layout of the buildings. You can see the cul-de-sac up on the top there at the east end that would be dedicated back as part of this subdivision, and that would be able to provide circulation for city vehicles, as we do garbage trucks and snow plows, for them to be able to turn around, fire, emergency, but then also does provide access to an existing public alley that provides access to this back parcel, this smaller parcel on the back that is vacant. This kind of shows some of the landscaping. There's lots of renderings and beautiful pictures and design, but again, we're not looking at any of that, but I wanted to show some just to kind of give some context of where we're at. We are currently in a site plan review. We've gone through one review and reviewing both the subdivision and the site plan together. So it's exciting to finally have this project moving forward. This is the plat we're looking at, and really several easements, several things involved, and some dedication back highlighted with the cul-de-sac, but there are some irrigation easements. There's some high pressure gas lines that are part of that. There's multiple utilities. There's access for the trail, so the city would be able to get vehicles to keep things out of the river, pull things out as happens, and to maintain all of that. So got all of that in place. The project is proposing to split the property up into 3 lots, so each building would be on its own lot. The review, we have the corrections report, and basically there are some verbiage and some easements that need to be clearly modified, and just some minor modifications with the plat, which are pretty common when we look at that. One of the big ones that I'm looking at, the commission needs to find compliance with the code, is dealing with the parking. The overall project itself has enough parking, exceeds the minimum amount of parking needed, but not all of those stalls are in the right location as far as lot by lot. So there is a requirement. Lots 2 and 3 would need to have some access to some parking in lot 1 to meet those requirements. So staff has added that condition, that easements for the access and use of those stalls for those lots 2 and 3 be included. But really, with that and those minor corrections, staff would be recommending approval of the proposed subdivision.
Questions from commissioners for staff or the applicant? there anybody from the public that would like to present information, additional information to consider that is other than what is already in the packet?
Chair,
Commissioner Southwick.
regarding the preliminary subdivision approval of the Ogden River's Edge subdivision consisting of 3 lots for a new apartment and commercial development at approximately 1720 to 1834 Washington Boulevard. Move for approval of the 3-lot apartment and commercial subdivision. With finding that the subdivision plat will be in the best interest of the public and in harmony with good development of the area, and that the subdivision plat will comply with city ordinances by satisfying all department, staff, and private utility recommendation or requirements. Move for approval, subject to satisfying the corrections shown in attachment 7, which include 1, meeting road trenching and repair requirements with the installation of utilities for the project. 2, establishing a financial guarantee with Ogden City for subdivision improvements. 3, satisfying engineering, staff, utility, and roadway requirements. 4, meeting addressing requirements. 5, satisfying legal staff requirements for correct verbiage, easements, information, and formatting with the plat. 6, the subdivision plat include access and parking easements on Lot 1 for Lot 2 and Lot 3 to be able to use to make up for the deficient parking on Lots 2 and 3.
I second that motion.
Okay, I've got a motion by Commissioner Southwick and a second by Commissioner Shale. This is a roll call vote. Ms. Pagano?
Commissioner Sando?
Yes.
Commissioner Shale?
Yes.
Commissioner Southwick?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
No.
Commissioner Aberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Almadov?
Yes.
Commissioner Ross?
Yes.
Commissioner Shinoda?
Yes. Commissioner Williams, would you like to? tell us
I'm
about
morally
your-
opposed.
Thank you. This is good luck on your project. Thank you. Last item on the agenda is a public hearing, zoning ordinance amendment. Presenting is Mr. Brierly.
Okay, good evening. So this is a hearing to consider a proposed zoning ordinance text amendment regarding single-family landscaping requirements, creating new waterwise landscaping requirements. So to give you some background, in case you're not aware, Utah's been facing water problems over the past few years. We were in a drought. Got a little bit of reprieve a couple years ago when we got a whole lot of snow over the winter. It was a little bit of break, but this winter's been drier winter, and I think all the projections show going forward it's going to be more the norm that we're facing water shortages and an oddity. So this is something I pulled up today. Here's we're back into moderate drought territory. Thought it was interesting. There's next step is severe drought, which sounds pretty bad. But then there's still two steps after that. You get past severe, you get to extreme, and then exceptional, and I guess that's just burning in hell. I don't know. So hopefully we're not going to get there. But this obviously has a lot of implications for all of us as planners, because we want to turn on our taps and have water, or we want to have our schools have playgrounds. We want to have our businesses be able to wash their dishes. We want to be able to attract businesses that use water in their production. We want to have new homes for people to come and live in and have them have water available. So it's important that we pay attention to this and make plans for that. Another implication is just what's going on with the Great Salt Lake. The water level dropping on there, and that has a lot of implications to the wildlife, to recreational uses, safety, to land use, to the economics of that. So some of the things that the city has done to address it, we have adopted water-wise landscaping ordinance, applies to multifamily, commercial, and industrial. We have a flip your strip program to encourage people to convert the park strips to water-wise landscaping. We've done a lot of improvements in city operations. City, we water our parks and our golf courses and things like that, and replace pipes and done other things to replace the controllers and other things to just be more water efficient in there. These all, and there's more things that we can do. Really, these things that we've done are saving drops. We want to save buckets. We need to address our water infrastructure, our leaking water pipe. That will save more than anything else that we. And the biggest pipe we have that leaks is that 36-inch water line down Ogden Canyon. So Ogden gets its water from near Pine View Reservoir, and there was a 24-inch line down the Ogden Canyon, a 36-inch line. 36-inch was installed in 1935. Its supplement to a 24-inch line was installed in 1915. It's critical to providing water to Ogden, and it's got problems. There's lots of leaks, and our biggest water loss is through this pipe. The number one thing far and away that we can do for water conservation is fix this. And we are, yes.
What is the time? How long does it take?
Brady? I got Brady Hurd.
Not that it matters. It's
Brady
just
Hurd's
I'm
from
curious.
Water. Yes, he can talk all about the project.
I'm glad you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Yeah, so this will be a multi-year project. I think the funding on it through WIFIA and some of the other state funds that have been procured 2029. So right now, the first phase of it is up closer to Port Ramp and Surfer Beach. The biggest part, one of the reasons why we're there is we're trying to run in collaboration with some of the Forest Services improvements to connect those two recreational sites. So that, and we didn't want to have a bunch of overburden on our, but timing-wise, I would say we're working through it. Like even this week, we were having design and trying to identify other areas throughout the canyon or even on the east bench right above Rainbow Gardens, whether or not we start to go towards the section above Rainbow Gardens this upcoming fall. It's all kind of subjective as to how different areas open up to availability and design as well as the contract. I know that's very vague, but we're constantly trying to push that in the sense of working with the residents in the canyon and all the other factors that are playing into it with season and run times of production.
And the pipes that you're using now, what's their lifespan? Because this was 1935. How long do you think the ones you're using?
So right now, where this, it's kind of a culmination of two different type materials. So stuff that's closer to the boat ramp is shot coat steel. So it's a mortar lined steel pipe that has to be welded. That's what currently, or portions of the line are currently existing. So I would project 90 to 100 years is what it could last, right? Like that, a pipe for saying that it's lasted as long as it has, it's far outlived its lifespan. We feel like the steel material is far superior than a lot of them, especially in the conditions of canyon conditions that it'll be exposed to. The vast majority of this will be shot coat steel just because of the mountainous terrain that it's going to be placed embedded in. There's the section between Windsurfer Beach and Dam, which it doesn't have as many of, like it's not as susceptible to some of the mountain conditions. That is actually being slip lined with an HDPE pipe inside the existing still line
Oh, okay.
pipe. So, that'll be kind of, this first phase is gonna be basically like half still HDPE, which is more of like a plastic type pipe. It's fused together and everything that way.
What's the existing pipe made of?
So this section close to the boat ramp is shot coat steel. As you get down and over the dam, there's sections closer to the treatment plant that will be just reinforced concrete pipe, and that's where we feel that some of the bigger losses are of the pipeline. The steel line has performed really, really well and actually aged really, really well. Partially why we're doing the slip line of HDPE along the UDOT road in the shoulder, because this steel line has been susceptible to some of the surface salts and winter conditions that get exposure to steel material. So just different conditions that are in exposures to pipe is kind of why we alternate between the different pipes. Yeah. Hopefully that answers your question. Go ahead.
Okay. So, so looking at that as our biggest water savers, fixing this pipe, and there's some other benefits to this too. This was an article, you know, could this help the Great Salt Lake and the birds in the Great Salt Lake? Birds are suffering from lack of water there. And so Ogden's worked with the state and have come up with a plan to deal with it. And plan involves a grant agreement that we're getting from the Division of Water Resources. So of the $100 million or so cost, they have agreed to give us a $10 million grant. A huge chunk of money. So there are a couple conditions to that grant. One is that we're saving all this water that's leaking down the pipe. Will you give us some of that water back so it can go back into Willard Spur, into the Great Salt Lake to provide improved habitat in that area? So that is part of the conditions for the $10 million grant. We've agreed to that. Second condition is they've asked us, well, what else are you doing for improve water conservation? Do you have a ordinance that addresses front yard landscaping in single-family dwellings? And we said, well, we have one that addresses it in multifamily and commercial and industrial. We haven't done it for single-family dwellings. And they said, well, that's going to be a condition that you adopt a water-efficient landscape ordinance for new single-family dwellings. Why you're here tonight. That was kind of background of why you're considering this tonight. So what they have requested as part of the grant agreement is that we do an ordinance that shall state that no more than 30% of the landscape area in the front and side yard for residential dwelling can be natural turf grass. And this applies to new single-family dwellings. And we worked out that language with them specifically. So the proposal meets the requirements of the grant agreement. It would say that new single-family dwellings, and I'm emphasizing the new single-family dwellings, where a building permit is applied for after May 1st, shall be limited to a maximum of 35% of the total landscape area in turf. The front, side yard facing the street on a corner lot, and side yard. So.
I have a question, can you tell?
Yes.
Now this is landscaped area. What if your home takes up a bigger footprint? Are they just counting the part that the home is not on can only be 35%?
Yes.
Because was there ever like a percentage of your lot could be that? So if you have more building on your lot, could what's left over be 100% landscaped?
No. So this is of the 35% of the landscaped area. So that's the area minus the house and the driveway and the sidewalks and all.
But some are just going to have more yard just because they don't have as big of a building.
Right. If you have a small house on a big lot,
You get more.
you get, 35% of a larger area yard. If you got a large house on a small lot and you have this tiny front yard, 35% of a small area can be
So what if an
turf grass.
existing home burns and then is rebuilt?
No, this would apply to new single-family
New
dwellings.
construction only. And apply to these,
No. No, we do have a existing water-wise landscape ordinance on the townhomes, just like the projects you look tonight. There were some of those areas that less than wide you can't. So there are water-wise landscaping requirements already that apply. This particular requirement would not apply to.
Martin, is there a reason why the backyard's left out?
Yeah, I mean, the state has just not wanted to deal with the backyards for,
That's where families play,
That's exactly right. Well, that's why, yeah.
Soccer
Yeah.
field.
yeah.
If I can chime in talking to Weaver Basin, and they've worked very closely with the state, the intent would be have green space for your kids or grandkids or whoever it is in order to have some gathering space. And I think they realize that they want to kind of steer clear of that in an effort to allow that to happen. Yeah.
And in fact, there's some state law that says we can't regulate landscaping in backyards.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's what we're proposing. Along with it, since we're amending this one, small couple paragraphs in the code, there were a couple.
scary looking baby.
I know, what is that, the Black Plague?
It is. I think babies were old back in the old days. I don't know. But there were some things that we felt over some that. Sorry. There were some things that we felt that we changed in the same paragraphs, and one was when we did adopt our water-wise landscaping ordinance in 2022, we had some prior language that was allowed you to do water-wise landscaping, but it had some real sort of artsy language. It had to be artsy. And our counterfolk were having a tough time trying to judge whether somebody's landscaping plan was artsy. And so we asked to get rid of the artsy language for water-wise landscaping, which we did that, but this is where we kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater. We didn't really say, okay, well, what do you have to do? Got to be very vague. Well, what if I just want to do rock? My whole yard in rock. And you had to say, well, it has to be landscaped, and landscaping is plants and conclude rocks. It doesn't really say how many plants you have to do, and that's why the baby out with bathwater.
That's why we have some nice gravel pits in the front.
Yes. And so we want to correct that with this, say that the front and side yard facing a street on a corner lot of a single-family dwelling shall be landscaped such that at least 50% of the landscape area is by living. So we think this gives a lot of options for people. Design it different ways. If they wanted to have a lot of rock, they can have a lot of rock. This is kind of how this would work. You have up to 35% turf. Actually, an existing home, you could have more than that too, but for a new one, it'd be 35%. But you have to have 50% living ground cover, so you can have water-wise areas that maybe has some plant cover in it. It can have mulch and other covers in it. But the total, and then you can have just rock areas. Total has to have at least 50% living ground cover. Trees can cover a lot of ground, and so it's fairly flexible, but it prevents it just being all rock.
You know, one concern I have here is maintaining things like this. This is not easy to maintain. It is easier to get out your lawnmower and just mow it down, even if half of it's weeds, than it is to make what that is right there look good.
I
I think this is so much easier to take care of than grass.
You think so?
This?
Yeah.
You have to weed that.
If you do it.
In
With the
Victorville,
ground cover.
California, they literally get little stones, put them on their yard and spray paint it green. And that's
Yeah.
allowed.
Another little thing we come in is people come in and say, hey, I want to landscape my front yard with rock. Because that's landscaping. And then you see it's like this, and
A driveway.
we can all look and see what that's not actually landscaping is. They just ended a place where they're gonna park, or they're gonna park their car, or their RV, or their trailer in the yard. And so we've kind of struggled with that with the code, since we allow rock right next to the driveway. So we're proposing a change that say landscape areas consisting of mulch, which include rock mulch, adjacent to a driveway shall include a barrier such as plants, fencing, or boulders, to prevent the landscaped area from being used for parking or maneuvering. So you see on the left, they've done that with some rocks and plants, and, you know, that's not gonna be
And Barton, this is just for new builds still, right?
So this would be for new and any retrofits. So the 35% turf applies only to new. Second and the third would apply to any retrofit. If I wanted to come in and want to make my whole yard gravel, we'd say, no, you have to have.
People actually.
There's
do.
one that's just been done on the north side of the 100 block of 24th Street, and it is entirely gravel with 2 or 3 little dividers.
Yeah.
It's just happened in the last week.
I was gonna say, I'm not sure most people come in and ask permission.
Yeah, some people come in and ask for permission after we tell them that they needed to have
Yes.
come in and ask for permission, so. Yes, it does happen, so. And another little point we're pointing out is you're required to have, when you construct a new single-family home, you have to have street trees in the planter strip, and the code says they have to be installed before you move in, which middle of winter doesn't really. So
Right.
just provide that you do a financial guarantee. So, how does this relate to our city goals? One of the goals is to provide an adequate quality water supply for all Ogden City water customers, which, again, the biggest bucket that we can do is fixing that water line, and whether you like the ordinance or not, it's gonna facilitate this
We
$10
need to
million
pass it to
grant.
get the grant, right?
Yes. I mean, I think the ordinance is a good idea, but, this will facilitate it. And also, one of the goals is neighborhoods that are safe, livable, and attractive, and, by getting rid of the 100% rock idea, you know, that water-wise landscaping can fit in with an existing neighborhood. There are some plans. So we're recommending that you recommend the city council adopt the.
All right, any questions for Mr. Briley from the commissioners? This is a public hearing, so is there anybody online or in the audience that would like to comment on this agenda item?
I think there's some.
Looks like there's a couple people over there that want to speak.
Chair, real quick.
Go ahead.
I had a question. Who came up with the 35% number? And why was it 35?
The Division of Water Resources came up with that. And in general, that's a number that has been pushed statewide for A lot of areas, it's not a mandate yet, but any program, any that has any incentives for water-wise is using that 35%. So the state came up with that figure. I don't know the origin of it. They just figured that that would require you to do something like I'm showing on the picture where it's not all turf.
Yeah,
And
okay, thank you.
I don't know there's any magic.
Any other questions from commissioners or audience? If not, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion, motion to close the public hearing by Commissioner Southwick and a second by Commissioner Sandow. Roll call vote, Ms. Pagano.
Commissioner Shale?
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Point
is
of,
that
point of, query, point of order. What are we voting on exactly?
We need a
This-
motion.
Closing the public
Just
hearing.
Closing public hearing, then it'll come back, and then we'll vote.
Is that not a voice
That's a
count?
voice
vote? Thank you for the clarification. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Any opposed? Thank you. Now we'll bring it back.
I'll make the motion. Regarding the public hearing on zoning ordinance text amendment, single-family landscaping requirements, finding that the proposed zoning ordinance amendment is consistent with the general plan, the purposes of the zoning ordinance and state and federal laws, and recommend that the city council adopt the proposed amendment.
Second.
Okay, a motion by Commissioner Shale and a second by Commissioner Aberg. Roll call vote, Ms. Pagano.
Commissioner Shale?
Yes.
Commissioner Southwick?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Aberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Almadov?
yes.
Commissioner Ross?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandow?
Yes.
Commissioner Shinoda?
Yes, and that passes. That'll go to the city council. All right. Review of correspondence, if any?
None.
Report, Landmarks Commission, Commissioner Shale.
Oh, yes, Landmarks Commission's going great. We approved 2 certificates of historic appropriateness for re-roofing and a new sign on 25th Street.
Citizen Advisory, Commissioner Southwick.
There was a meeting scheduled and it was postponed and rescheduled, and I'm still, ready to be.
Is there anybody interested in filling Commissioner Southwick's position on the Citizen Advisory Committee? Okay. Ogden Trails Network, Commissioner Williams.
Everything is going well. They're working on a lot of trails. There's a lot of erosion from the winter. And it was interesting, at the last meeting, the department, the forestry people weren't there, so we don't know if we're going to have forestry people because of the, we aren't sure if they're going to be part of our, they have jobs, we don't know. So, but there's a lot of trails that need to be.
Elections have consequences.
Thank you. And review of meeting.
Tonight, and I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but at some point I want the item, the R3 and the apartments, and I thought that was a nice design, but it kind of raised the issue that we've got limited design standards and requirements. Do we need to look at revising the R3 ordinance to address architecture and amenities and those standards and?
Yes, we do, and that's part of the zoning ordinance update we're working on now. We've got standards for apartments in commercial zones, some in R3, some in downtown, some in group dwellings, and they don't all.
PRUDs.
They don't all match, and so we are working on making one more uniform set of standards and making sure that there aren't so many holes in them.
Is there anything we can do in the interim to prevent bad designs? And, I mean, do we want to look at a moratorium or discuss a moratorium, something to, I mean, I thought this was a good design, and these were people that were. And then the other thing that was really interesting is the petitioner on the last one commenting, take that fourplex, we drop one unit, you've got a you've got a one unit, you've got a duplex, and you've got all these rows. You don't have to break up and differentiate, so then you end up with an ugly, massive, uniform,
Yeah.
lack of variety. So to me, that was kind of a little glaring gap that we've got there that ought to be addressed, because somebody will try and exploit that, I think. Okay, so I don't know where we go with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to you. I mean, we're definitely working on that, the zone Ogden, but it's gonna be.
Zone
a
Ogden.
little bit. No, it's, I mean, we hope to have something for you, this fall to stop, we're working on it.
And we're coming into the busy season, we could see some garbage in the meantime. Is that something we can talk about at next work session?
Yeah.
Work session?
Overall, I think the meeting went pretty well. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, on the one, we had a lot of discussion on fences, and while you can require that, kind of one of the things that we try not to do is design projects for developers. So that's really my only comment there. With the fencing, it's not as bad, but if we were trying to do some design elements, that wouldn't be allowed. But
So should we have just said privacy fence then?
probably just privacy fence, yes.
It wasn't okay, but it was a mitigating factor, or it was something to mitigate the, the height. The conditional use for the higher density.
All right. It was warranted, yes, but we should.
Like a
Now,
specific,
they did mention what type they were thinking about, but they changed that. Now they would have to come back.
Now, if we say privacy fence, though, where do we find the definition for what that is?
We can try to define that ourselves. You can also use
Solid fencing, could you say like solid fencing?
solid fencing. I know that we have a problem sometimes with vinyl fencing, and so just something, possibly with some sort of materials recommendation.
If you do go that route with design, there is criteria under having compatibility with the site and with neighboring properties. Just need to always lean on the ordinance. Because I don't like it, it's not a reason I can say. And so we have to lean on the code and what make fine.
There wasn't any issue with the Sycamore project with maintaining the requirement of that concrete fence, was there?
No, that goes. I mean, since it was, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that one was, since there was a reduction in the step back, we required them to have that concrete fence. So them coming back later and saying, hey, we want to change this, it's almost, they want us to change our requirement, gave them a reduced set.
Yeah.
And that, I think you guys decided correctly on
That didn't seem right.
Any other comments?
For your work session in 2 weeks, we'll go over Zone Ogden. We are going over overlays. There's lots of overlay zones. We have floodplain overlay, sensitive land overlay, corridor overlay, airport overlay, and there's a long list of overlay zones, so we're gonna talk about those. And we're gonna have a discussion about yeah.
About what?
Say that again.
Chain businesses.
What are chain businesses?
Like
Chain business,
Walmart.
any
Franchises?
and franchise, yes.
Walmart.
Franchise-based businesses, and we want to place some limits or not. So that'll be it.
Oh, yeah, no.
I believe,
Sure.
Starbucks.
No.
They wanted a place.
No.
But
Yeah.
they had to comply with the
Yeah,
I
they're
think
owned
their
by like
ordinance
people
and they
you
would do
know,
it.
not based on the
Oh, yeah.
billionaire.
That can cause problems.
There's already 3
We
chains.
don't want them.
There
We
are
don't want them.
several, yeah.
What are the,
Cold Stone, Rocky Mountain Company, Great
Oh,
Harvest.
Cold Stone.
Yeah.
There's no Beans and Brews on 25th.
Warren's is a
Warren's is maybe, yeah.
Craft Burger.
They're local.
Kraftburger
no,
is-
it's Kraft Burger, so, I mean, they don't have another one of those, so.
yeah. Oh, it'll be,
No, that's, Grounds for Coffee. They are a local
Yeah.
chain. They've
That
got
guy's,
like
that guy's
three.
local though.
That's a local business with
Yeah.
multiple locations.
Yeah,
Yeah, we need to define chain better, I think.
National.
that will-
national
See,
chain.
come, I've whetted your
All right.
appetite.
Gossip.
You're gonna,
This is gonna
What
be
you would used
going.
to do. Come on,
Yeah.
guys. We're all gonna be there.
It's gonna be
Bring your
juicy.
popcorn.
You know, when you're talking about chains are juicy conversations. I am, because I'm excited about it.
What's next on the big concrete, the Wonder Block?
uh,
Are you opposed to
I
concrete?
think more concrete. And then, yes, it will be skinned. It's,
I mean, is it be built out around it and the
Oh, yeah.
buildings will?
Yeah, those are just
Yeah.
bones.
So that's,
Yep.
that's just the core.
yep, you're just seeing the bones. There's no skin. Yeah.
When will they open the parking garage?
I think it's slated for September this
Oh, really?
year,
Okay.
yeah.
So that'll be open as construction
Yeah.
continues, so.
Trevor?
It's, yeah.
What a,
And the mayor wants to be able to talk with the merchants and help alleviate
you know,
some of their
there's a misnomer going around that people think that, I heard this on 25th Street from one of the merchants, that because of the banners around there, they think that Jay Fisher is Thane Fisher. They were
Oh.
critical of Thane Fisher because he was supportive of the new parking charge requirements, and they think it's a self-serving thing because of his building and stuff. And I said, no, that's a completely different
Oh,
entity.
wow.
Thane does historic stuff. I know for a fact that's different companies.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
But you might want to clue people in that
Yeah.
that misnomer's out there
Oh,
so it can be corrected.
Yeah.
I have a question about the, like, you know, remember when, Waldrop came in here and they wanted that?
Aspen.
Oh, the,
Yes. What is going on? I've
on
been out of,
Madison?
yes.
Yeah,
Can
so
we talk about that or is that not
they,
allowed?
city council,
Remember?
well, found something very interesting in state statutes that if you dig, you would not find it unless you dug really deep, that,
You had to read the,
yes.
Yeah.
the definition, but if there's a definition of area of operation, I think is what it
Yes,
is.
that's
And
right.
we- And for the Weber County Housing Authority, it's the entirety of Weber County,
Right.
except
Ogden City?
if you want to go into a city, you have to get the council's,
Right.
and if the city also has a housing authority, you have to get their approval too.
Yeah, so it's been to city council twice, like I'm seeing it all over my social media, like
Yes.
So what,
We
they're,
are in-
they're
we
killing
are-
it again?
I
Well, we're
don't
killing
know.
it because I believe we're purchasing.
Ah, okay.
And I think, our community development department is under contract yet, but they're in negotiations to purchase it for infill housing.
Okay. Well, I remember Rick Saston said that when we first heard from them, that they couldn't have, Weber County could not have, built offices in city, like in Ogden City. I remember him specifically saying that. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah.
Because they were gonna operate from inside there.
which is what they still plan to do, which I don't think the public understands that. From what I've heard, the public thinks it's just city council turning away the homeless who are disabled. And I'm like, it's more than that, you guys. Like, they're not getting the whole story. Yeah, they're getting it all wrong, yes. I commented on something and I just got like packed.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, well,
Keep us out of the
middle
newspaper,
finger.
Michelle.
That's,
Yeah.
So they hadn't purchased it until they got approval?
no, they've had it for.
Oh, they had it.
We're getting approval.
They've had it
Yeah.
for over a year.
So are they gonna take the existing building and convert that into housing, or are they gonna tear it down and?
I think they're going to tear it down and put.
Yeah.
But on that.
Yeah, the whoever they are, I'll just say they did a really good job at like stand on that place, like people not understanding exactly what it was. It was really interesting. I didn't say anything, like, I just expressed my own opinion that it was a bad idea. Yeah, anyway, I just kind of wondered, because I've been out of the loop, I wondered where we were on that. I heard about it, city council's seen it a couple of times, right? Yeah.
Your motion?
Motion to close, end a meeting. That's the correct term.
Move to adjourn.
There, thank you.
Second.
Motion by
Word was
Commissioner
not
Southwick,
coming.
second by Commissioner Aberg. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.